Evening, ladies and gents, how are you doing? As you might expect, the BBC has fully moved on from the events of the last few days and want to pretend that it never happened. Memory hold it completely because it's a little bit inconvenient, isn't it? It's inconvenient to their fiction that if you bring people from third world countries who've had a lifetime of struggle, the second their big toe touches the sand at Folkestone or on any English beach, they become super liberal. They don a top hat and they start talking with a plummy accent, and they love cricket and Yorkshire tea and cream eggs. And they're just, they're as English as you or I, because, that makes loads of sense. Totally logical. And it definitely works in reverse, doesn't it? If I took a job in China, worked there for a year, and my missus popped a sprog out while we were there, and all of a sudden they've got a blonde-haired, blue-eyed, limey prick walking the streets, they'd all be like, oh, look how Chinese this kid is. He's mega Chinese. In fact, he's not just Chinese. He's more Chinese than you, or Xi Jinping, or anybody else here. He's more Chinese than all of us, because he was born here. Again, it's completely irrational. So here it is, the BBC homepage today. Yeah, loads of news. There's the economy being knackered, obviously, and Mauritius having talks over the Chagos Islands, and Morrison's shops in Ukraine, and a kid who's been killed, and Cadbury's, and Wallace and Gromit, and not a single mention of the obvious. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because I find myself disagreeing with someone that I've been a long-term fan of on YouTube, probably followed him for about 15 years, Mr. Benjamin. Because during this video that they just made on the Lotus Eaters, I've found myself somewhat staggered that Carl appears to be in quite a strong disagreement with his much more sensible mate in the middle there, because he seems to find it highly unlikely that a radical would lie for a few years, and he seems to be convinced that the bloke was indeed a former practitioner of the religion of many, many pieces. And I think that is upside down. This bloke was 100% a regular at Alan's world famous snack bar. 100%. And anyway, I'll just play what he said, and then I'll give you my thoughts on the matter.
Some community, of course, don't want to claim him as one of their own. And so you've got a very long thread like this one, where people are pointing out, well, he was saying contradictory things. The translation is, no, we will return Hamas to Gaza, and if you like it, we can bring Hamas to your home so you can taste it, which is a weird thing to say. Again, I'm not sure, because, a lot of this is people...
It's a weird thing to say. It's not a weird thing to say if you're a radical, lifelong fan of the pot-bellied epileptic desert midget, is it? It's not weird at all. In fact, it's exactly what you'd expect them to say. But carry on, Carl.
Whose second or third language is English, and a lot of this is also being taken through Google Translate, or perhaps doesn't translate well. So I'm not sure.
Not sure. Oh, because they have to run it through Google Translate, so there you go. Yeah, Google Translate doesn't work. If I put into Google Translate in German, I'm a very promiscuous heterosexual man and I'm massively into tits. Sometimes Google Translate will make a mistake and it might spit it out as, I'm more bent than an £8 note and I absolutely love noshing blokes off all day long. That can happen when you use Google Translate. It can't, Carl. It can't. I don't know why this is a blind spot. Cynically, I'm thinking, what is it? Something to do with worrying about getting blacklisted in Silicon Valley or something? Like, I don't see how this is a logical or coherent argument. We have to run it through Google Translate, therefore the sky isn't blue. Ultimately, it's irrelevant what he says. Completely irrelevant. As anybody sensible knows, the only thing that matters is what you do. It doesn't matter what anybody says. Humans are exceptionally good liars. They lie all the time. Politicians lie every single day for 35 years. Why do you think it's weird that this guy lied for a few? It's completely irrational. What he says is irrelevant when you look at what he does. And what he did was, well, two primary things he did. He set up an organisation to import as many of his brothers and sisters from places like Saudi Arabia and Iran to the West as humanly possible. That was his number one aim. And number two, he drove a car through a Christmas market, purposely killing Christians. If he wasn't a regular at Allen's, why would he do those two things? Saying that he's far right and he was in the AFD. He set up an organisation to import as many Saudi Arabians as possible to Europe. That's not what the AFD do. White nationalists don't do that. They don't set up organisations to import swarthy foreign gentlemen, do they? But I think his mate makes this point, actually. Let's listen, because there was a bit where I quite enjoyed it, is Oppo pushing back aggressively against him.
But lots of people saying, well, look, this was just taqiyya. So taqiyya is an extra tyrannical Islamic doctrine that gives Muslims permission to lie in the service of Islam. Now, the problem with applying that to anything is that you're essentially trying to divine someone's innermost thoughts without a falsifiable standard to work against. So is something taqiyya? Well, yes or no, depending on how I feel about it. And how broadly can taqiyya be defined? Well, however broadly the person who wants to apply it wants to define it. And so we end up with a concept that isn't actually terribly useful.
Bollocks, total bollocks again. Carl, you're normally so sensible. What's the matter with you? What do you mean, depending on how I feel at the time? You can see his Oppo looking at him like he's thinking, my God, the boss has definitely dropped a clanger here. It's not how you feel at the time, it's watch what he does. It doesn't matter what he says. It never matters what you say, it matters what you do. And what he did was, he imported hundreds of Saudi Arabians to Germany and he purposely killed Christians. This isn't rocket science, is it? And then you're sitting there like some sort of like one of those actually guys going, yes, but technically, quantifiably, veracity. Just watch what he does. This isn't that complicated. I'm sure Carl, from listening to him, I'm sure he's better read and has a higher IQ than me. But this is one of those things where you don't need to overthink it. You just have to apply common sense. It's where clever people bugger things up all the time. There's elements of life where Stephen Hawking and Bill Gates or anybody else intellectual you want to try and pick, where they'd be wrong and I'd be right because they overthink everything. We're not talking about astrophysics. We're talking about something as basic as ordinary human behaviour. And to get to the bottom of that, you just have to have common dog. You don't have to be a genius. I don't need to sit here and define what's quantifiable, what metrics we can use grounded in reality. All I need to do is ask two questions. A, do people lie a lot? And B, is watching what people do a better indicator of their beliefs than the things that they say? Easy. If he hated the regulars at Allen's, he'd have twatted a load of people outside the big golden Bell End church, wouldn't he? But he didn't do that. If he hated migrants, he wouldn't have imported as many migrants as he possibly could. This isn't rocket science.
And doesn't allow us to kind of narrow down on any one particular thing. This guy had a long history of doing this. Did he keep up to Kiev 10 years? Maybe. I don't know.
Well, politicians with 30-year careers manage to lie for the entire 30 years. It's not that difficult to believe.
They do, but...
They do, yeah. Again, listen to your mate, Carl. He's much more sensible than you on this issue.
Do you then set up an NGO to bring ex-Muslims out of Saudi Arabia?
Well, strip out all of the words. What was the result?
Sure.
More people like him turned up.
Sure, and we'll get to that a bit later. I just want to focus on the ideological bit for a minute. It's not that I think there's no legitimate allegation there. It's just we can never really come to a solid conclusion on it.
Yeah, well, you can't always come to a solid conclusion. This is the thing. This is the thing with like overeducated people. They're almost like obsessed with box ticking, like conclusively winning an argument via the medium of quantifiable metrics they can point at and go, aha, look how clever I am. There is no way of knowing what's in someone's internal monitor. We don't have a machine you can like plug a microchip in someone's head and then get them to talk and the computer will be like, beep, boop, bap, definitely not true. You can't do that. But it's the same with the jury. You don't have to be 100% nailed on, do you? You just have to be beyond reasonable doubt. You don't have to have video footage of someone killing someone to convict them of murder. You can just do it with, like, I don't know, a tiny spatter of blood on the socks and a knife with a fingerprint on it. You can do that. You don't need 100% proof of anything. And this weird intellectual exercise where it's like, actually, technically, quantifiably. No, it's bollocks. Strip out all the context. Look what happened. mashed a load of Christians, imported a load of foreigners to Germany. Foreigners that are all practitioners of a certain religion, because in that country, everybody's a practitioner of that religion. As I said, 15 of the 9/11 hijackers were from Saudi Arabia. It's one of the most overly aggressively religious countries on planet Earth. We know what they think in that part of the world. Almost all of them. And he said he was a former practitioner because it'd help his asylum application. And then he said he was going to bring loads and loads more of his fellow brothers and sisters because it'd help him import them. Just tell the stupid Westerners that you don't really believe in it anymore and they'll let you in, lads. It'll be brilliant, and then we can colonise all of you. It'll be much easier. And then we can flatten a load of Christians at a Christmas market, and then educated knobheads will say, oh yeah, definitely wasn't for that. Or we can never really know what went through his brain. We can know. The evidence, reality itself proves it. We don't need anything else. But that's just my opinion. I thought I'd give you it. A rare disagreement with Carl, and you lot can give me your opinions. Do you think this fella was actually an agnostic Keynesian? Like, what do you think he was? Judging by his primary actions, which is importing people from Saudi Arabia to Europe and flattening a load of Christians. I don't think it's particularly complicated, but apparently educated people do. So you let me know in the comments if you think I'm a plank or not, and I'll see you all tomorrow. All right, thanks for tuning in. See you later. Toodle pip.